lines up really well into Feno's lineup because Feno opted to go for the Token Druid over the Mali Druid, something we've seen a lot of this weekend, and Warpath just real good against that deck.
Yeah, now there is a kicker in Feno's lineup with Cube Warlock. Players downstairs as well, when I'm talking with him, he's telling players how good Cube Warlock is. It's a very good deck. It's a very good deck. And people are kind of jokingly laughing at it, like, oh, yeah, it's a great deck. I'm sure it's very powerful. It is quite powerful, but, the fact that this deck took a hit, a couple patches ago, it meant that its power level dropped from this dominant deck that seemed unstoppable into a position where, there are certainly some matchups that can be quite bad for you. I don't think this is one of them, but I am curious to see how this plays out. To say that I have experience on the deck that Swidz is playing would be, just pretty much a lie at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of the things that stand out to me in this deck list. First, there's Cornered Sentry in here. That's there for disruption effects against decks like Taunt Druid, for instance. It gives you that staple card that can disrupt them. A couple copies of Warpath, one Dead Man's Hand, and you move on down the list. A Weapons Project as the removal.
Oh, yeah.
2 Militia Commanders are in the deck. A Harrison Jones, an Unidentified Shield.
Just one.
An Azalina, and a Scourge Lord Garrosh. It is so weird to see this deck, and I'm curious just how it ends up panning out. The game plan for Pino, pretty straightforward. Make a bunch of stuff, kill him with a bunch of stuff. It takes a lot of time, but Swidz is really the player I'm interested in watching the mechanisms of this deck work.
Here's another card that's kind of fallen out of favor with the nerfs to stuff like the Possessed Lackey is the Spirit Singer Umbra. Because you can't curve out from 4 to 5 with that Spirit Singer Umbra with the Possessed Lackey, got a lot worse, but with the coin, it doesn't matter. Swidz would have had to Warpath execute if he didn't want to deal with this, but that's just so much resources invested. Here's a Doomguard.
Yeah, the Doomguard's really the one that you're super interested in killing in this matchup. It's the one where if Feno starts to duplicate that, you find yourself in real trouble in Swidz spot, I'd imagine. You don't have a lot of ways to kill a bunch of Doomguards all at once. Now, at some point, they are likely to occur again with Blood Reaver Gul'dan. But the key is just to beat enough life total that you can eventually stave those off as well. Preventing the cube from hitting a Doomguard, I would say, is one of Swidz's top priorities in this matchup.
He's going to have to get rid of it real quick here because the Spirit Singer Umbra is on the board still. The Carnivorous Cube doesn't even need the Dark Pack in order to activate, but if he really wanted to, he could Dark Pack it, make 4 Doomguards.
Yeah, and it looks ugly to do something like Militia Commander and execute it, but the Warpath serves a good purpose, and Swid's going to let it live for a turn. Now, the one punish is Cube and Dark Pact. If Feno just has Cube, Swidz is, a lot of times okay with this. It's the fact that it's Cube and Dark Pact to duplicate them immediately. The thing about it is that will play into Brawl at that point. So does Feno feel like he wants to play into Brawl that heavily? Maybe Gul'dan doesn't show up till later, and it's a big effect. Like, you pretty much just Cube it, but there's no silences in Swid's decks. So Feno is free to leave it here for a turn and see if Swidz can do something about this alone. If he can't, then you pop off again next turn. A lot of options really on Feno's side is really the gist of this right now. Yeah, bad situation for Swidz.
That's something I was going to comment on with Swid's deck, because a lot of times you see Warrior every once in a while on ladder, and they're running 2 copies of that owl just for the matchups like Taunt Druid, where you have to silence the Hydronox or silence the cube that's controlling the Hydronox. But no owls to be seen, so as soon as a cube sticks on the board, it's sticking.
Yeah, and for Swidz now, we've pretty much reached the nightmare territory. This, I think, is by far the worst matchup across the board in Feno's lineup for his Warrior deck. So, pretty disappointed to see it, I'd say, but sometimes you get got. Your game plan isn't always going to go according to plan, and so you got to start figuring out what can you do to turn that around. And there's still some situations here where I think Swidz can get back into it, but it's a pretty long ways away.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of Feno's lineup. He has the Odd Paladin and the Token Druid, and Warrior would have been more than happy to play into either one of those, but fortunately the Warlock was queued up first, and he chose to ban the Hunter over the Warlock, and I wonder...
Oh, yeah.
You just gotta, at that point. It's kind of pick your poison. You're going to probably take a loss to one of them. It's just, which one do you think you have a better chance of beating?
Yeah, I would say the Druid has a better chance against Warlock than against the Hunter. The Warrior is, in my opinion, almost no chance against what the Hunter's going to bring. And, you know, he's queuing up the Warrior first a lot of times, I imagine, just to, because the other two matchups look quite good for him. I think Cube looks bad across the board, and you're not really too worried about that.
Having to bring it on just to make sure he doesn't die this turn. Everything in Fino's hand discounted by 2. That's a free Acidic Swamp Ooze. That's a buff Possessed Lackey to 4 mana. Ziliax is 3. Void Lord is 7.
Yeah, so, you know, Swidz really is the big major problem will be if Fino finds Blood Reaver Gul'dan. He can get past these board states with a relatively safe life and be able to check the board. The problem is going to be if Gul'dan shows up early. If it's early, Swidz will have low chance. If it's late, there's some hope.
There is a small chance that Fino actually doesn't get to the Gul'dan anytime soon as well, just because he's had so many cards to play. He hasn't had found time to just tap.
Yeah, it's been big, powerful cards.
Which, as far as Warlocks go, is just there are a lot worse problems to have, but at the same time, you need that Gul'dan. You got step 1 out of the way, but you need that finisher.
Yeah, and the setup here for Swidz is also, you know, quite weird as well. He'd love to get Scourgelord Garrosh online, but, you know, that means he's going to be taking a lot of damage in that situation. He'd love to be able to use Warpass and clear this off. That's a 2-turn setup. Everything he has is just a little bit slow, and so he has to probably take another risk here. You know, I don't want to see him use the second Brawl, but I'm not sure he has another opportunity to do anything else.
There's Warpath into Execute, where he could choose to trade off some of the Voidwalkers and then execute one of the Doom Guards. That leaves the Doom Guard on board. The Brawl.
Wow.
The Whisperer.
So just any of the non-Doom Guards living is a pretty equal result here for Swidz. And in fact, sometimes the Voidwalker winning can be interpreted as a better result. You know, say your opponent plays a big minion and you have Scourgelord and you get to attack the 1/3 taunt instead. The weapon from Scourgelord Garrosh cleaves the minions to the side of it as well. So being able to attack a low attack minion is beneficial in that regard.
Fino's at the point in the game where he's going to start tapping, looking for that Gul'dan, but Mountain Giant.
Yeah, Serrated Shield is the shield that the unidentified shield has become for Swidz. It's 5 damage.
I believe the Serrated one is 5 damage.
That's the attacking one, right?
Does that create a weapon?
Is that the one that makes the weapon?
I
think it's the one that makes the weapon.
I just saw it for like a half second. I think it deals 5 damage.
Okay. One of the ones, the 5/2 weapon is one of the modes. Deal 5 damage is one of the modes. Make a 5/5 golem is one of the modes. The other one is just 15 armor.
Yep.
And I love the 15 armor one.
Oh, it feels so good. Whew. Just doesn't feel as good as back in the day where you had that 6-man Shield Maiden. You play a 5/5, gain 5. Ooh, that felt good. It's not quite there, but still pretty good.
I love that card.
One of my favorites.
Just a big dumb thing.
Then you smacked your big dumb thing into their big dumb things, and they died.
Yeah. Dynomatic oftentimes tend to be fairly weak in the matchup as well. Would give Swidz some presence here, and then also allow him to make use of a Militia Commander in this situation. Execute's a pretty premium removal spell, and you want to be using it in pretty dire situations. So for Swidz, I think it's pretty clean, use the Militia Commander instead. Not really too concerned about armor total right now.
Especially later on in the game where you're going to have a lot of creatures you need to be removed, but they're behind taunts, like the Void Lord that are going to come back from the Gul'dan. And so you really want to save the Execute for those kind of turns, because in the meantime, if you can kill it with just minions, you got to go for it.
Yeah, because if you can't kill it with minions, what else are you going to kill it with? Not the Execute you already used. The Execute you saved.
Scourgelord Garrosh is sitting in the hand. It's really hard to find a spot just to play this, because with the Blade Storm and the weapon, he can kill the Mountain Giant. Ziliax actually helps in that regard just a little bit, because he can swing into the Ziliax taking less damage while still dealing 4 damage to the Mountain Giant.
Yeah, the question here is then just getting past this position, right? So if he Garroshes, he gets to use the Whirlwind Hero Power. The Hero Power from Garrosh is 2 mana, and it Whirlwinds the board.
Yep, gets rid of the Divine Shield.
Gets rid of the Divine Shield, puts the Mountain Giant to 7. Then he gets to use the weapon to attack the Ziliax, puts the weapon into the Mountain Giant from the Cleave.
Puts it down to 3 health.
And then the Ziliax is gone, can use the Dynomatic from there. The question is, when do you want to use Scourgelord Garrosh? That is an extremely important card that just changes the way your whole deck works at that point. So that's really the vital situation here for Swidz. When do you use Scourgelord Garrosh? And then how do you craft your game plan to follow up afterwards? Here, it just looks too good.
Yeah, it really feels bad to get rid of your armor up, but at the same time, armor's only going to get you so far when you're facing down an army of Doom Guards. So you really just got to fight for board and just try to find some more premium removal.
I'm really surprised by this. Swidz is more interested in using the Execute to take out this Mountain Giant, and I have to think that that's an error. a 3-1 on board is worth way less than an execute is, in my opinion.
Especially with the warrior, because you're not exactly caring about board control, because you're never going to beat down a Q block with minions.
Well, yeah, just this is going to happen, and then you go, It's not like you need to execute the Void Lord, but what's the 3-1 doing?
Yeah, and these Warpaths are never going to have enough mana in order to Warpath down a Doomguard. It's going to cost 14 mana, and last I checked, Warrior did not have access to that much.
Yeah, you know, the backup plan to that is to hope that Gul'dan doesn't show up for a while, and if it does, that lots of Voidwalkers hit that pool.
I'm going to lose anyway. I might as well go for the out. We saw against Muzzy on 6 mana, he Whispering Woods into Power of the Wild, which would put it outside the range of something like a Blood Razor, although Warpath, Brawl, and everything else would still work just as effectively. But sometimes they just don't have it, but more often than not, as we can see in Swidz hands, He's got everything and more.
Yeah, you're tempted to play the Dynomatic here, and I definitely think that the Militia Commander holds a bit more weight in the situation. It's less mana efficient, but you get to preserve a Dynomatic in that scenario instead. So the question is just going to be which one plays a bigger impact later. Maybe he's looking at Militia Commander and thinking about Cenarius actively. You take out the 2/2s and then use the Militia Commander to wipe it out. Say alongside a Scourgelord Garrosh weapon, perhaps. So I think here I would have liked to see Militia Commander, but he does have a second copy of Dynomatic, so I don't mind seeing that either. The other thing, too, is Militia Commander weakens you against opposing Whispering Woods when you have another Dynomatic, so that's something else to think about.
Yeah, with the Innervate in Fino's deck, he's going to be able to get the combo off a turn earlier, but he's choosing to forego the Soul of the Forest for the Power of the Wild.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty rightfully so. There's 3 Whirlwinds for Swidz. There's just really not going to be a way for him to get to a position where Swidz does not have the mana to use the maximum number of Warpaths to exit this. And so using it sooner rather than later means it's the least chance for Swidz to have Warpath right now. But he's got Warpath, and that's probably enough to keep Fino at bay for the rest of the game.
The Warpath, yeah.
This is why you play the Warrior deck. Is like you expect stuff like this to show up, and you dominate these decks. The mid-range decks, you don't do that too. It's very polarized, but this has been a good strategy for Swidz this tournament.
So I'm trying to think, for Fino's perspective, resource allocation, because the Soul of the Forest, if you're not using it with the Whispering Woods, what exactly are you comboing it with? Because the Cenarius can make the 2/2 taunts, like you said, and he could have chosen to go with the Innervate Power of the Wild to try to make a beefier board that's not necessarily as wide, but the Warrior might be able to struggle with just Whirlwinds. Now he has the Whispering Woods Soul of the Forest anyway.
There is another plan also that I think can sometimes come into effect here, which is Fino just never draws a card. Fino can amass, I think, probably more armor than Swidz actually can over the course of the game. And Swidz doesn't really have a dynamic threat that prevents offensive pressure. Fatigue is a possibility, but that would require him to never use Ultimate Infestation. And with Token Druid, if you don't use Ultimate Infestation, your hand looks bad a lot of the game. And that's like such a rare scenario. It's like a Hearthstone supernova. Like, it just doesn't happen. They happen, you just don't know where and when. I'd be surprised if we saw it this game, but I don't know what direction Fino wants to go after this. Really got very little left to work with.
Because Swidz also has that one copy of Dead Man's Hand that we were talking about earlier, so Fatigue is even harder than it normally is. He has the Dr. Boom in hand if he wants to apply some pressure, if Fatigue ends up being a little bit more of a problematic out. But it's both the combos are kind of gone at this point. Fino doesn't really have a whole lot of threats left besides the Cenarius. I think 2 Arcane Tyrants. Besides that, it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see the other Drivisker here. This is the highest opportunity you have to get value from it. And, Swidz just looking at it going, I think the coin's more valuable than the armor is. And I don't disagree with that. He was debating between Cornered Sentry and between Drivisker armor. Frankly, I think I like the coin more.
And here's this big swing turn. He's going to choose to forego the Fatigue option. Going to go with the UI. He just saw 2 Warpaths get used, and so he's going to go as big as possible. Gets both Arcane Tyrants. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, this is another scenario where it can happen, is if you just get a big Ultimate Infestation turn like this, there's still Violet Teacher and Soul of the Forest afterwards. The Wild Growth puts a second copy of a spell in your hand with excess mana. You can assemble quite a number of 1/1s and then Soul of the Forest those. So this game plan from Fino, typically you lose this matchup a lot, but it's looking like, honestly, he's not that bad a shape.
Militia Commander's going to see to that, though. Going to clear off the board, living with a 2/1.
This is a real push that Fino's making here.
Got the Violet Teacher in the Soul of the Forest. If any of this sticks at all, 1 Savage Roar in hand, probably not going to do it, but if he picks up a second Branching Pass, the second Savage Roar, even the Cenarius +2 buff, that's just a lot of damage really quickly.
Wow. I may eat my words here. He has a chance.
This is that supernova we were talking about. There's the Dead Man's Hand, but do I want to shuffle any of this into it's bad.
This is not where Dead Man's Hand is a card that requires a lot of time to manipulate ideally. And it's in here for Swidz as like the final card you play, basically. Like, when you're going to go to Fatigue and your opponent has nothing left, that's when you use it. But Swidz doesn't have any AoE anymore. It's seated in Dynomatic, which could just fail. There's a Soul of the Forest that's taking place. Swidz is in real trouble.
He technically does have AoE in the access of the Dr. Boom hero power, which has a chance of getting the 1 damage AoE the turn it's played. However, that doesn't deal with the Soul of the Forest that would come out afterwards. But this is a sticky board. Brawler doesn't deal with it. No Blood Razor in the hand. Double Savage Roar in hand. He could just push so much damage.
Yeah, when your opponent has a turn as weak as Swidz just did, Cenarius and buff the board is real trouble for Swidz. And this might have been too much. I think if Swidz does not have a big draw right here, this game's over.
Harrison Jones. Would have been nice against the Skull of Minari last game, but no good against Druid. What do you even do here? There's the armor that can gain a little bit, but the cornered sentries are just going to get run over. Dr. Boom potentially discover a mech? What mech could possibly get him out of this situation?
You're asking some good questions right now because nothing in Swid's hand looks like a very appealing play.
Swidz was so happy to get this matchup so early on in the series, and it just looks like it went bad so quickly. 3 damage. It's going to take off 1 stats on the board if he pings one of these students.
All right, so you laser it up. You kill. That's the one that doesn't have a 2/2 attached, right? So that probably mitigates the most amount of damage here. That leaves 9/15 on board, and each Savage Roar represents 10 damage right now. So that's 15 plus 10 plus 10.
So he's 6 short currently. With the swipe as well, it's going to be 2 short.
That's 35.
Hero power, 1 short.
And swipe brings it to 39. Oh, so you're still alive, but not really.
He's currently bleeding out on the cusp of death. Technically still alive, but...
Wow.
Oh, Shield Slam, not going to do it. Microbots, nowhere near enough.
It must be Feno's day. Holy smokes.
My goodness.
You are not supposed to win that matchup as Token Druid. Cenarius was one of the big reasons behind that, but also the Violet Teachers being able to provide another wide board effect. Swidz doesn't find a brawl, doesn't find a way to check what's happening, and Feno ran away with that game. That is crazy.
Feno is on one of the most dominant performances I've seen in a top 16. He top 60, 3-0'd Amnesiac, 3-0'd Muzzy, and now he's on course to 3-0 Swidz.
Yeah, he's yet to lose a game in the top 16 so far.
Oh my.
And I'm hoping that did not just curse him just now. But this is another matchup that Swidz is pretty darn favored in, at least for this game. It's basically the exact same style of game plan. You are trying to just eliminate Feno's board turn after turn. I think you do a little bit better of a role in it in some regards, but a little bit worse in some as well. Feno's going to present more board states that are troublesome, but once you get Scourge Lord Garrosh down, it's typically pretty easy to contain that. So the goal is for Swidz is, once again, eliminate board pressure, don't take too much damage, and then have your key cards at the end of the game. And for Feno, it's pretty much about relentless pressure. Once you have that window of opportunity, you seize it, and you hope.
Yeah, Feno also has 2 copies of the Divine Favor to draw a lot of cards, which is going to be crucial in this matchup. But it's just super hard for the Warrior because you know what your game plan is, but the problem with decks like Token Druid and the Odd Paladin is you have these seemingly innocuous boards that, like Lost in the Jungle, for example, you make 2 1/1s, and the next turn he's going to have 2 more 1/1s, and it's like, they're just 4 1/1s. What are they going to do? Next thing you know, Level Up comes down, Bunglemancer comes down, and a Blessed Wall comes down, and you're like, oh no.
It's pretty bad news if you get in the wrong situations. Acolyte of Pain is a pretty all-star looking card in this matchup. Cornered Sentry does play some defensive roles, but for Feno, it's really about the big payoff turns. It's about the level ups. It's about the Fungulmancers. It's about Vine Cleavers connecting and just continuing to pressure. It takes a long time for Odd Paladin to run out of gas, and that's really where Feno's going to find big payoffs. It's that Swidz is under pressure to make sure he checks the board turn after turn after turn.
Swidz, no Blood Razor, no Whirlwinds in sight. And Feno has the coin on the level up.
There's no Blood Razor in the deck. It's been replaced with Militia Commander.
That's why we don't see it in the hand.
Yeah, that's likely a nod to Odd Rogue, where Blood Razor does not work very well against them. Their premier 3-cost minion against you is Henchclan Thug, and it's often a 4/4. So being able to attack that with Militia Commander or kill a Cobalt Scalebane with it, very important tools, I think, for this deck to have.
Fortunately for Odd Paladin, it's a whole lot worse. Dry Whisker Armor going to gain 14 armor, but What is 14 armor in the face of an army of 3/3s?
Well, it's a lot, and I think that's, Fino does not want to see Dry Whisker armor happen. Like, pretty much end of story. But if you're going to have to trade that for big turns, he'll take it. So the question here now for Swidz is, has this been a substantial enough defense to be able to keep going? I'm not sure just yet. I think he needs some more tools to really get this going, because this is a lot of damage.
Dynomatic, not enough to clear the board quite yet. The shield is only gaining armor. There's going to be no weapon or damage coming out of that as well. He has a shield slam, but it feels so bad to use that on a token.
I think you're probably Dynomatic.
Yeah.
You still have 2 really strong targets for that, and it does put a 3/4 in play. The question for Swidz is, do you want to attempt to draw extra cards here? What does that extra card mean versus just a single card from Acolyte of Pain? Would you rather be hitting a minion in that situation? This is a really tough turn that honestly could affect the outcome of this game greatly if he chooses to draw an extra card or doesn't.
So if I'm Swidz, I see the shield block in my hand. I see the Dr. Boom, which is going to be providing a lot of value over the course of the game, and I see 2 enemy minions at 1 HP.
Okay.
He gets it.
Yeah, it's important for him not to hit his own Acolyte twice with the Dynomatic as well. All the statistical outcomes are quite low in their specific ones, but a lot of times you're going to hit your Acolyte, you're going to hit a 3/1, and then your Acolyte's going to trade in. It's pretty much the turn I was assuming Swidz is going to make. But now the damage is looking a lot more scary. Like a lot more.
A whole lot more. Corridor Creeper also in the hand that's going to be free, but does he want to play into Brawl?
Yeah.
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 I answered that question. Your opponent went into turn 5, not necessarily with a brawlable board. He played the Dynomatic, so you can't really necessarily make a read that he doesn't have it. But at the same time, I have the Vine Cleaver in the hand. I have another Fungalmancer. You just go for it.
I think you do, and the reason I think you do is because Swidz has limited numbers of board clear. Once he runs out of those board clears, you're home free to continue that pressure. So if you can force it rather than give your opponent a second guess on it, I think that's great. The problem is I don't think Fino knows if he forced it or not, even in this situation. This was a massive amount of minions that were killed this turn, and Swidz, I think, likely would have done this over brawling.
Thankfully, the Corridor Creeper coming down last turn created the second minion for the Fungalmancer.
Yep.
This is what we've been talking about a lot this weekend. It's seemingly just like, it's just one body, it's just one damage. What are the consequences really are? You can see it right here. If he didn't play that Corridor Creeper, Fungalmancer would have been almost nothing.
Yeah.
But instead he gets to push with a 4/7.
And now Swidz is in a really, really strong spot, I think, to win the game from here. He's facing down a lot of damage, and that's going to keep pouring in. But he's seen 2 Fungalmancers, and he's seen a level up. And honestly, it looks like he's in pretty decent shape. And so if that's the case, how on earth does Fino get past a Scourgelord Garrosh tearing into the board next turn and then doing so for the rest of the game? The benefit is Swidz has 15 armor, but there's a 15 armor shield in hand. He gets 5 more from the Scourgelord Garrosh. He's got 10 more from the Bring It On. There is a lot of life Fino has to get through.
Fortunately for Fino, he does have some reach with the Vine Cleaver. He has the Raid Leader in hand to hopefully buff up a board that might be able to stick. But like you said, with the Garrosh coming down, that hero power, plus the weapon, a board sticking from here on out, it's going to be slim to none. He has the Leroy Blessing of Might, but with the Tower Shield gaining 15, it's just not going to happen.
I can see it happening still. I mean, there is a second Vine Cleaver in hand, which is a lot of damage. It's just the issue is sticking minions to the board. It almost doesn't happen for the rest of the game.
Swidz also doesn't have any weapon destruction in this deck as well. No Gluttonous Ooze and no Acidic Swamp Ooze.
It's a good attempt here from Fino when you swap minions that are attack buffed based on state-based effects with Void Ripper. State-based effects, being like Raid Leader. It buffs it while it's in play. That attack moves to the health permanently, and then it reapplies its attack buff since it's no longer there. If you swap 2 1s with Void Ripper, they go to 2 2s.
If you want to get really cute, you can do it again and make 3 3s.
Ooh.
That'd be cool.
Can you?
Or 3 2s.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I was like, 3 3, huh? I'm listening.
That's like level up.
Yeah, I like level up.
Brawling away the board. It was a nice attempt, but the Raid Leader is going to... Oh, never mind. 1-2's going to live. It's not going to do a whole lot of damage. Yes. Do you bring it on? Are you scared of the Leroy Blessing of Might, Blessing of Might?
Nah. I don't think so. I think what Swidz really needs to be worried about is just actual ideal draws from Pheno killing him. So you're looking at like Leroy Blessing of Might, maybe being an issue. I think you don't take the risk. You gain the 10 armor, and you can get 15 more next turn and keep killing all of Pheno's boards.
Another thing with the Bring It On that kind of helps a little bit more in the situation is that with the, unfortunately for Pheno, he only had the Flame Elemental in hand, but that is a free card that he gets to dump out of the hand for the Divine Favor. And so he's going to be able to draw a few more extra cards, but Swidz doesn't have that many cards in his hand either. So Divine Favor is looking weaker and weaker as the game progresses.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that Scourgelord Garrosh is such an important card in the matchup, is you do run out of resources in Swidz's position. The Acolytes really they're there to give you extra fuel, but they're more so there to find the key cards that really matter. So when it's expending everything turn after turn, Pheno, once the 1/1s get checked, Divine Favor just sits there. And it's a slow bleed out from this position, but I think overall it's still leading to the same place.
Hero Power weapon is going to clear up the board, no problem. There's the Dead Man's Hand.
You can use the Dino-Matic as well. So Dead Man's Hand here to me is a bit interesting.
Yeah.
When Swidz wants to use that card, I don't think it's too big of a deal, but I'm looking at 15 armor, I'm looking at Dino-Matic, and I'm looking at another Dr. Boom, which is really just 7 armor. It's 7 armor once you have really squelched the assault, and it's in that final stage of the game. I don't even expect it to get to that point.
Yeah.
I imagine Pheno probably concedes once he recognizes that. But Dead Man's Hand is giving you an extra 15 armor card in your deck, so that could be quite important.
The problem with Dr. Boom is, while the battle cries are very good, you do not have control over them, and Bladestorm is just so consistently good against Odd Paladin that you really never want to replace it. So shuffling in an extra Dr. Boom, the 7 armor is kind of just a last-minute ditch effort in the case that you are going to die. But like I said, the Bladestorm is so good, I don't think that's ever going to be an issue. But when you got nothing else to play, why not?
It's mostly focused on the 15 armor and on the Dino-Matic.
Yeah.
The remaining minions that Pheno may be able to push with here they're not going to be enough to really get this done. So there's 15 armor. Swidz knows there's another Vine Cleaver in deck as well. So you want to eventually counteract that pressure. Now Stonehill is a big one that can make some real difference.
Tarum is what I'm thinking of right now.
Oh boy.
I said it and he shows up. It's like Beetlejuice.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is just massive. I mean, now Swidz can be under some real pressure. It's a Lost in the Jungle plus the Vine Cleaver summon plus the Hero Power summon. It's literally a full board of 3/3s and a 3/7 taunt the turn that Pheno can do that. So Swidz not really having necessary tools in hand to handle that immediately. This is another panic mode situation. Think back to last game with the Cenarius. Swidz is super favored, but sometimes that losing percentage comes up.
What else is in the... I'm trying to think what else resources are remaining that can deal with this Terramite. He's already used Warpaths. He's already used 1 Brawl. I don't think there's a Reckless Flurry in the deck either.
No, it's pretty much Brawl.
The weapon is going to be ineffective because so many tokens are going to be coming... 6 tokens are coming out next turn. That's going to be a full board.
Yeah, also, Pheno gets to manipulate the positioning of taunt minions, so the weapon only cleaves to 1 additional minion in that spot.
Especially if Swidz decides not to swing into the Stonehill right now. So it's going to have Stonehill on the far left and Tarum on the far right, and it's going to make the weapon even less effective.
Wow. And so also foregoing the Acolyte of Pain Dino-Matic here, Swidz, I think, is perhaps underestimating what a dire situation he could be in this spot. The cards in Pheno's hand could be a wide range of things, and it's pretty scary to play around a Tarum from a Stonehill, but honestly, that feels like one of the only ways he loses this game. Now, put yourself in Pheno's shoes thinking that. Pheno's looking at these cards. He saw a Dead Man's Hand take place. He could very well be thinking that there's brawls in here and thinking that substantiating a board could be the way to do it. But he's going to tear him instead. I don't blame him.
No Lost in the Jungle either to get out that extra token. Blessing of Might on the... Oh, there's so much damage and
yeah,
a whole lot of nothing.
Is in a lot of trouble. This is not okay.
Got to be Alkali to Pain. Whirlwind, draw a card, maybe just the shield block, try to find that brawl.
Holy smokes.
Oh, this is rough.
If Fino can get out of these two matchups, that is just something else. 15 armor, it's like a Frost Nova right now.
Not even, because that 6 damage from the Stonehill is going to be pushing past that 15 mark.
So Swidz is looking at turn after turn being able to, maybe fend this off and deliver that lethal blow. Right now it's 15, 21, just 25 on board, and he's at 25. If this doesn't kill a minion, is he just... Oh, that kills a minion. Okay, so he's not just immediately dead.
It wasn't guaranteed to kill a minion, but...
Oh, it was the cleave that kills the minion. So he's not
Yeah.
dead on board, but just a little bit of damage gets there.
Baku, not even the worst draw on the deck.
No, Baku, I think, is quite a strong draw, ironically. This is what the Warrior deck does. It turns everything upside down, like that weird level right before the last one in Marble Madness.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Divine Favor, draw 3 cards, foregoing the Baku.
Level up
Leader.
is found. And that's
So much-
it. Fino, 3-0 Swidz. And despite 2 massively unfavored matchups, at least in my opinion, is able to come out on top of this one, has not lost a game in the top 16, and now moves on to the finals.
What an